Have you ever stopped to think that every complaint you make might be quietly robbing you of your strength? What if the real reason you feel drained and powerless isn't your circumstances, but your reaction to them? Imagine this. You're stuck in traffic, fuming, and in that exact moment, your mind could be training for peace instead of spiraling into frustration. Let me ask you something. When you complain, do you really feel better afterward? Or does it leave you even more frustrated, helpless, and emotionally drained? What if I told you that each time you complain, you're not simply venting, you're surrendering control of your life to forces outside yourself? Picture this. You're sitting in a sea of cars, stuck in traffic that's barely crawling. The clock is ticking, your fingers drum the steering wheel, and you mutter under your breath. But what if, just what if, that same moment could have been used to sharpen your mindset, boost your productivity, or simply find peace? Today, we're diving into a core Stoic belief that might just transform the way you live. That complaining isn't harmless, it's dangerous. According to the Stoics, especially great thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, complaining is one of the most damaging habits you can develop. Why? Because every time we complain, we strengthen our dependency on things outside of our control. And that is where suffering begins. In a modern world where it's almost expected to gripe about everything, from the weather to Wi-Fi speed, complaining feels natural, even comforting. But Stoicism offers a radical shift in perspective. What if your power lies not in changing the world, but in changing your response to it? Complaining doesn't just reflect our dissatisfaction, it fuels it. It tricks our brains into focusing solely on what's wrong, what's missing, and what's broken. It's like staring endlessly at a tiny crack in the wall and forgetting there's a whole beautiful house behind it. Take the traffic example again. Two people sit in the same jam. One curses under their breath, gets angrier by the minute. The other turns up an audiobook, practices patience, or simply watches the sky change colors. Same external situation, completely different internal experience. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that while we can't control the events around us, we can absolutely control how we choose to see and respond to them. Complaining is a reaction, a default one, but it's not a solution. In fact, it only deepens our sense of negativity and discontent. So let's begin by uncovering the first reason why the Stoics believed complaining is a silent thief of your power. When you choose to respond mindfully, you create space for inner peace instead of letting frustration take over. That's how the Stoics maintained their composure in the face of adversity. Second, complaining turns you into a victim. Every time you complain, you're essentially saying, "I have no power in this situation." You give away control over your emotions, letting external circumstances dictate how you feel. You become reactive instead of proactive, drifting wherever the tide takes you. Stoic thinkers believed that true power lies in how we respond. When you stop complaining, you take that power back. Think about it. How often do you complain about the rain, traffic, or poor service? Each time, you're shifting responsibility away from yourself. But a Stoic would remind you, we can't control what happens outside of us, but we can always control how we respond. And in choosing not to complain, we regain control over our emotional state and restore our inner strength. Third, complaining leads to stress and anxiety. You've probably experienced it. One small annoyance, like someone cutting in line or a delayed reply, ruins your entire mood. These tiny complaints may seem harmless, but they quietly feed our unease. Studies show that focusing on negative events increases our stress levels. Complaining becomes fertile ground for anxiety, letting our thoughts spiral into a storm of negativity. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And it's true. Our pain often comes not from what happens, but from how we think about it. To the Stoics, it's never the event itself that causes suffering. It's our interpretation of it. You might recall from the previous section that we discussed the power of reframing. How viewing challenges as opportunities to learn can lighten our burdens and help us approach life with a calmer, more focused mind. Now, we'll go deeper into why complaining not only hurts us personally but also damages our relationships, and explore what the true antidote to this toxic habit is. The habit of complaining silently destroys your relationships. Think back to the last time you were around someone who constantly complained. Whether it was about work, the weather, or something as simple as their lunch not tasting right, how did it feel? Annoying? Draining? Like the air in the room suddenly got heavier? This is the harsh truth. Complaining isn't just a personal issue, it affects everyone around you. People who constantly express dissatisfaction often spread negativity without even realizing it. Over time, others begin to distance themselves, emotionally or physically, because they feel depleted. The energy becomes tense, conversations grow shallow, trust slowly erodes. Every relationship, whether with family, friends, or colleagues, needs to be nourished by understanding, optimism, and constructive communication. No one wants to stay connected with someone who only sees the flaws, speaks of what's wrong, and blames everything but themselves. These behaviors don't just wear people down, they build invisible walls. The Stoics taught a powerful truth. Wisdom lies in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Not every thought needs to be voiced. Not every irritation deserves attention. If what you're about to say adds no value and only spreads frustration, perhaps silence or a shift in tone is the wiser choice. Take, for example, a coworker who consistently misses deadlines. Your instinct may be to complain to others or show visible annoyance. But the Stoic way would guide you differently. Pause, reflect, and calmly address the issue, without blaming, without dramatizing. Simply express your concern and expectations in a composed manner. You might be surprised at how effective calm clarity can be. When you resist the urge to complain, you give others a sense of safety. They see you as someone steady, not easily swayed by negativity. You become someone they can trust, talk to, and rely on. And that's the foundation of lasting, meaningful relationships. Gratitude, the antidote to complaining. If there's one spiritual tool the Stoics held close to their hearts, it was gratitude, not the superficial kind, but a deep, genuine appreciation for life, even when it's messy, difficult, or far from perfect. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, often wrote reminders to himself in meditations, grateful reflections amidst war, illness, and personal loss. He wasn't blindly optimistic. He understood a vital truth. Where we place our focus shapes our emotional experience. If you dwell on what frustrates you, you'll naturally feel angry, bitter, and restless. But if you turn your attention to what's still good, no matter how small, you'll feel calmer, lighter, even hopeful. Life might not change in an instant, but your inner state will. Gratitude is like a mirror. It reflects whatever you choose to notice. Each time you recognize something good, you crowd out a little negativity. Over time, complaints lose their grip because your heart becomes filled with appreciation. Try this simple practice every morning. Take a minute to name 3 things you're grateful for. Maybe it's the sunlight pouring through your window, a kind message from a loved one, or simply the fact that you have another day to live and grow. Just 60 seconds, but it sets the tone for the entire day. When gratitude becomes a habit, it slowly replaces the impulse to complain. Why waste time grumbling when your mind is already tuned in to beauty and blessings? Why shout at life when you're finally learning to whisper, "Thank you"? The Stoics didn't deny hardship, but they refused to let it define them. Instead, they looked for the quiet good, and that choice, simple yet powerful, gave them strength. In summary, remember, complaining only makes problems feel heavier, while calm reflection, thoughtful communication, and gratitude can transform your inner world and your relationships. You can start today. by holding back one complaint and instead voicing one thank you, greater than, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Try asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" If you're ready, we can move on to the next page, where Stoic philosophy continues to guide us through even deeper ways to cultivate strength and serenity in a chaotic world. As we saw in the previous section, whenever we feel frustrated or upset, complaining not only fails to resolve the issue but also makes us feel more helpless. But Stoicism, with its wisdom, teaches us how to view every situation from a different perspective, helping us understand and overcome life's challenges. So, how can we start breaking the habit of complaining and instead adopt a more positive attitude? One of the most effective ways is by practicing gratitude. Imagine this. Instead of sinking into the feeling of dissatisfaction from a tiring workday, you reflect on the things that went well. You might have learned something useful, perhaps built a positive relationship with a colleague, or simply navigated through a challenging situation. The seemingly small things, when you take notice of them, will gradually replace the negative emotions in your life. Stoicism encourages you to do this every day. Don't just focus on the failures or difficulties, but recognize the smallest successes. Practicing gratitude will train your mind to see the good rather than dwelling on the bad. And as you begin to appreciate what you have, complaining will naturally fade away. But gratitude is not all there is. There is another important element that Stoicism recommends, which is embracing challenges in life. Do you ever feel overwhelmed when faced with a tough challenge, like a complex work project or an unexpected situation? If so, you're not alone. However, instead of shying away from these challenges, Stoics suggest that we should embrace them with an open and resilient mindset. According to Stoicism, challenges are opportunities for growth. Every time you face difficulty, rather than complaining about it, see it as a chance to develop new skills, cultivate patience, or practice virtue. A tough job doesn't need to be something you avoid, but an opportunity to expand your capabilities. Think of a challenging project at work, rather than complaining about it. Embrace it as a chance to learn and grow. These challenges are not something to fear. They're turning points where you can rise stronger. These challenges are your opportunity to become stronger, to learn how to face adversity without being overwhelmed by it. Stoicism teaches us that life isn't about avoiding pain or difficulty, but about learning to thrive despite them. When you embrace a challenge, you don't just overcome it, you become more resilient for the next one. By shifting your perspective and attitude, you can begin to shed negative thoughts and stop complaining. This not only helps you solve problems but also brings inner peace. Remember, happiness is not found by changing external circumstances, but by changing how you respond to them. So, if you found the ideas shared in this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Stoic wisdom. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a situation where you stopped complaining and instead applied a Stoic response? We'd love to hear how Stoicism has helped you stop complaining and start living with purpose and intention.